Hey everybody, it's the Modern Refugee. How is everybody doing this evening? I know this is a kind of a pop-up one here, but I wanted to cover a few topics and a few little discussion things that I wanted to bring to your guys' attention here. We'll give it a little bit, let everybody get in here. Hey there, 1776. Hey, Patriot Preacher, how you doing? Hey there, Gallo. Whatever, how you doing? There was a couple of different things that I noticed here with this storm, because I hate to say it, I do follow the prepping community as a whole, and a lot of it is really isn't that good information like in Facebook groups and stuff. You really got to be selective on what you're listening to and who you're taking advice from. And I kind of take pride that I'm giving good advice and good skills for people to utilize in tough times, no matter what those times are. Hey there, Craig, Seabass, Lake Lizard, how you doing? Hey there, Tom. Um, Couple things. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is prepping confidence. I want to talk a little bit about gear, and then I want to talk about an OPSEC failure that I seen this week, and it was just one of those things that I could see where that instance could really cause problems if information fell into the wrong hands, so to speak. So I want to cover that as well. And the first thing is prepping confidence that I wanted to mention. You always see this, I've been in different prepping groups and stuff on Facebook and reading different blogs and whatnot for literally years. And you always see these kind of, comments. What would you do if, you make one last run to the grocery store? Or, I'm going to make one last run to the gas station or whatever that is. There's this underlying fear in certain prepping circles that they don't have enough. They don't have enough. They haven't got the right stuff. Their confidence is lacking, and I actually want to build people's confidence up. And then I want to say this, that the prepping community as a whole is much better suited to weather bad things than the average person on the street, so to speak. And I think preppers overreact to a certain extent, that they're not prepared enough. But actually, most people, if they've got, they got their pantry squared away, they got their vehicle squared away, they got a little cash on hand, they got their stuff kept up, they've went through running their stuff, like if they got a generator or whatever, they've went through all that stuff, and you have backups for your heat and water and these things. You are just infinitely ahead of the average person because you've thought about that stuff. What happens if my bathroom doesn't work? I've got a plan for that. And if you've already thought about that and you've formulated different alternate options in your mind and perhaps even practice some of that stuff, you are just light years ahead of most people. And for that, you should, pat yourself on the back. Confidence is, people look to confident people when bad things happen. If you're, making decisions and you've already thought about these different, bad things that could happen and you're already ahead of that curve, you are in a position to not only take care of yourself, but then you're in a position to help others as well, whether it be friends, family members, whatever. Patriot Preacher, wife finally went back to work at noon today. That's awesome. I'm glad she's back to work. Hey, Karen, no power, heating with a fireplace and a generator. Well, I hope they get that worked out for you there, Karen. Yeah, that's not good news at all, Karen. I hope, like I said, I hope they get that. I hope they get that straightened out. Karen, I will throw this out for Karen. Karen is in Tennessee. I'm just going to leave it at that. There's no sense to get any further into it. Hey, Washburn, how you doing? But yeah, preppers sometimes they don't have confidence in what they've built, what they've put together, and I think that a lot of people in the prepping community just need to congratulate themselves because they are ahead. You are ahead of a majority of the population because you have thought about the scenarios and you've actually went and did something about it, which is, the other thing that kind of leads in, and that's kind of recovery from this storm. There are certain people, like Karen's on here, she's still dealing with the aftermath of that storm. But once, the storm passes and things start to go back a little bit to normal, that is a time to check off, what worked, what didn't work, what supplies did we use. We need to replenish the stuff that we used because you know what, if you're, snowed in for a week or whatever, if you're a good prepper, you would have used some of the stuff that you had. You had the confidence to say, hey, you know what? This is what I prepped for. This is what my pantry is for, is situations just like this. We've been snowed in for 10 days. We had a couple of days without electricity. We ran the generator. We ran one of the 100-pound cylinders out. Now it's time to refill refill that. Maybe change the oil in the generator. Check off what you used in your pantry list. If there was something that didn't work, you need to find out why that didn't work, and you need to get that repaired, fixed, updated, whatever that is. And you need to replenish. If you got into your medicine stockpile, you want to replenish that stuff. You don't want to wait, because a lot of times SHTF events, like I've said dozens of times already, will compound themselves. There might be something that somebody didn't think of that compounds back into the particular SHTF, like you're talking about. Like, the snowstorm came, I can't get anywhere to get any parts to fix my generator or whatever, and now the power went out. See that compounding thing. But now, if you've already looked at that and you had the confidence and you said, you know what, maybe I should have a couple spare spark plugs here, maybe a fuel filter, maybe I need to have a few things here to work on, my power equipment. Now I have the stuff here to maybe remedy that problem, and I can fix it and I can go from there. And that's another point that I wanted to make here in this video. Hey there, Stephen Ross. Appreciate you being here. Hey, Dog Bite. Hey, Following the Light. Karen, we thought we were ready. Tub water is for flushing. Feel not as ready as I thought we were. 3 weeks, maybe bad ice. Yeah, like I said, if there's anything I can do for you way the heck up here, Karen, you just let me know. You know how to get a hold of me. Like I said, if I can help you out from way out here, I certainly will. Uh, Craig, we have 4 tree crews from a company heading to Tennessee to help with the power outages. And that's another thing. A lot of times they will call out utilities, tree trimmers, linemen, and stuff. And, that causes a massive influx into communities. So things like, hotels get filled up. It puts, you already have a community that is short on resources because of a natural event that took place, but then you have an influx of the people coming in to repair that. That's another one of those like compounding issues that I was talking about, compounding SHTF. So now there's going to be more of a strain on, the food. People are going to be in there buying more food. They're going to be buying more, toiletries. They're going to be possibly purchasing clothes because they're damaging their clothes or whatever. So you can see where there's going to be an extra taxing put on. There's going to be extra pressure put on the resources in that area, whether it's something just as simple as parking, fuel, whatever, because these things are getting repaired. So that's another reason you have to be prepared for the aftermath as well as the SHTF event, as it takes place. Patriot Preacher, Tennessee and Mississippi seem to be the worst. Mr. Bumblehill, my work shut down for 3rd and 1st on Monday. 3rd time they close a plant in 20 years. Yeah. Karen, making big changes ASAP. Yep. Like I said, there's always, you got to deal with the aftermath of things too, even if things do calm down. Hey, Tyler, how you doing? Here in Iowa, we have cold and wind at the moment. We had complete whiteout here about 3:30 this afternoon. You couldn't see 20 foot in front of your face for about 45 minutes. A squall came in off the lake, and yeah, we were absolutely, you could have got turned around real easy if you would have been out in the woods or out on the ice or something. And that's always the big one around here, is out on the ice, and gets into the, why it's always a good idea if you venture out like that to have some type of way to tell your cardinal directions. Because if you're out on the ice like that, a big old squall blows up and something happens where you get turned around a little bit and you don't have a compass or a GPS or something like that on you, you can lose what direction shore is at, and that you can see where that is a massive problem. And we have more and more people that are coming up here and going out on the bay and the lake ice fishing. And there's more. I see more and more problems every year where people are getting into trouble because they're not respecting that lake and that ice. Ambrose McLaren just replaced the gas stove. What a blessing. Will warm the kitchen in 5 minutes. Replaced older batteries. They were guaranteed for 10 years. Don't believe it. Yeah, that's very true. United House of Polaris. How are you, Candace? Some of my stuff, like the solar oven or a money saver, don't need or want to run the oven in the summer. That's very true too. Hey there, Tammy. How are things downriver? So many unprepared people, and I think that was the big thing, with our friends there in East Tennessee, not Karen, but our other friends there in East Tennessee, on how quickly the grocery stores got stripped clean. There in the Gatlinburg area where they're at, they were they were in bad shape there. There was, if you just said, oh, you know what, maybe this storm is something, maybe I should go buy, some milk and some bread and some eggs, and you get up there and there's nothing there. That can put people into panic mode in a heartbeat. Oh, that's too bad. People trapped in their houses. Yeah, and that's another reason why it's good to have, a few days worth of stuff in your house for sure. Hey, Monkey Food Garden, I appreciate you being here. Hopefully everything is going good for you guys down there. Are you guys below freezing still there, Monkey Food Garden? Treat your linemen kindly. Oh yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And like I said, a lot of times when the power's out, sometimes it's really simple to replace, to get the power back on. Sometimes it's just a fuse or something that's blown up in the transformers on the telephone pole. Sometimes it's not anything that's crazy. Other times, it could be poles down or whatever that requires, different things. But sometimes it's a simple fix. They just have to get there to do it because they have everything prioritized on what's the most important. And unfortunately, residential customers are on the bottom of that list. Things like hospitals and big factories and anything to do with the government. That's stuff that's straight up, they're going to take care of them folks before the actual residential customers. And that's another reason why to stay prepared as much as you can. Oh, don't worry about being late. You're taking care of the hens. You're all good. Local prepper project. Good day, my friends. Always good info on these live streams. Well, I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm just trying to help folks out with my own life experiences and some of the things that I know. Mr. Bumblehill, talk of a nor'easter coming. Yeah, that would be a compounding SHTF there too. Tyler made milk bread this weekend. Great results. Oh yeah, I remember milk toast. That was actually a thing when I was a kid growing up. Hey there, AR American. Hey Jenny, cold in Ohio, small farmer. How you doing? What are folks doing for drinking water when with the power off? Well, there's if you don't have any stored water, if you have a hot water heater, you do have some water, but there's a caveat to that. Most people don't drain their hot water heaters and they get sediment and stuff in them. So you can drain that water out and you have water, but that water probably isn't drinkable unless you have some way to filter it. And that's why it's good to have some type of filters. Um, Individual portable filters where you can utilize some of the water that you might have to scavenge. Now another thing, now like around here, there's a lot of hand pumps that are in roadside parks and that are in state parks and these kind of things. A lot of that stuff is shut down this time of year, but if it's in the spring and in the summer and the fall, those places are still open, and that's a way where you can get water manually without having to have any type of electricity. Drops Homestead. So glad you didn't get freezing rain in Northeast Arkansas. Yeah, it's freezing rain and ice storms are always the worst. Karen, a Jeep group went around here getting trees down from the back roads and drives, and that's another reason why to have a small chainsaw at your disposal, so you can throw that in a vehicle after these storms. And I've seen it many times with thunderstorms around here. When a storm goes through, there's lots of tree damage, and you need sometimes have to move those trees and whatnot to get through it. Nothing better for that than a small to medium size chainsaw. Have friends in North Louisiana. They had 3 inches of sleet and ice and lots of damage to their homestead. Makes me sick seeing the pictures. Yeah, that's terrible. Mother Nature, she can be brutal. She can take care of you, but she can be brutal too. I see AR Americans on here, and he's always talking about firearms and stuff. And this room gets to buying good gear and having good gear. And when I wanted to get into a particular piece of gear or whatever, um, we got a lot more we have a lot more resources available to us now today with the internet and stuff, so we can look at reviews, and we can look at different YouTube videos on pieces of equipment and stuff, and we can kind of narrow that down. And when I was younger, I didn't have, all those resources. So I had to trial and error a lot of stuff and probably wasted a lot of money. Now, there's something to be said. There's always the talk back and forth between, um, cheap gear to get you in the door, and then better stuff as it goes down the line. But in my experience, if it's going to be something that you're going to use, and you already kind of have your eyes set on, hey, I need this particular firearm, or I need this particular piece of gear, whatever that is, chainsaw, generator, fill in the blank, doesn't matter. If you already have a general idea, sometimes it's just better to, you know, buy something a little better to start out, because there were different times that I purchased stuff that I thought was good and it turned out to not be good. And another thing is, sometimes you don't want to buy stuff on how it looks or how somebody has it on the internet and they look cool with this piece of gear or whatever, and you're buying on kind of the aesthetics of it compared to function. And I've seen this too. I was in I was in the industry of selling firearms for years, and because I did that, I was blind to a certain amount of bad equipment, because I knew it was good and I knew it wasn't good because I was there every day. I seen it. So when I made a purchase at that particular point in my life, I was good. I knew that was going to work because it was, quality stuff, and I take it out, use it, whatever. Well, then as I got out of that, and I seen a couple of things, hey man, those look pretty cool. That looks like I got a spot for something like that. So then I went ahead and I bought it, and that was complete junk because I was out of that game for a certain period of time, and things have changed. Now, people are cranking out, ARs is the big one. There's so many different ARs out there, but when I was first starting into it, there was two. You had Bushmaster and you had Colt. And as a general rule, if you got a Colt, you were good to go. And that's why I still stick with those to this day. But I got blinded to seeing this stuff day in and day out, and I just bought stuff that I knew was good right from the get-go. But then as I got out of it, I didn't have quite as much inside information anymore. I made several bad purchases and I'm not going to beat those firearms manufacturers up on this show right here, but I did buy some stuff that was complete junk, and I got rid of it. And I really kind of learned my lesson, and I'm very more a stout now. But I'm more likely now to wait longer and purchase something that is better quality and higher quality than what it was in the past. So that's kind of my little kicker on that there. Hey, Hen House, how you doing? Sea bass, 10-gallon water containers. That's a good idea. And those blue water containers, they're good to a point, but as they sit, they kind of compact with the weight of the water in them. So those aren't really my favorites. What I like are those big round ones that they put in those, water dispensers. Those seem to hold up a lot longer for stored water than some of the ones that are geared more toward camping, like the Reliance brand ones. If you're storing, 6 gallon of water in them cube shaped square ones, sometimes that doesn't really, they, like I said, they start to have issues for sitting around with all that weight in them. But those large round plastic ones, those are actually good to go. And if I was going to pick anything, if I had to buy new, those are the jugs that I would pick to store water in. Patriot Preacher, County snowplow closed off my driveway this I seen I think 3 stranded vehicles. There was nobody around because I kind of made sure when I went by, but I seen 3 stranded vehicles this afternoon. And we already had our roads kind of opened up and stuff. And people, they get off the road just a little bit or out of the track, they get into problems. Drops Homestead, better have fuel and stuff for that chainsaw, or be an electric one, or have both. Yeah, that was something Anthony there from Palomino Prepared, when Helene went through. That was the thing that I remember him doing a video on. He said after that storm went through, he had the saw, but then he didn't have the fuel and the bar oil and stuff to go with that. And that was one of where he lapsed in kind of his preps. But that's something that that can be fixed. I always try to keep at least 10 gallons of fuel here for just strictly the chainsaws. So I've got 10 gallons of non-ethanol fuel stabilized, and I have the synthetic 2-stroke oil in it. And then I actually have there's actually a winter formula for bar oil. Steel makes it. I don't know if there's other brands. I'm sure there are other brands, but then I have a couple of gallons of the winter bar oil. And another thing with bar oil that I'm going to mention, it's about 2 to 1. For every tank of fuel that you use out of your chainsaw, you'll use about a half a tank of bar oil. So if you have enough fuel to run whatever, let's say 10, you have enough fuel to run 10 full tanks full out of your chainsaw, you should have enough bar oil to fill up your bar oil 5 times. That seems to be the ratio. And then I've noticed that over multiple models of saws over the years. And well, you can use any old oil in, the bar oil of the chainsaw. The thing with bar oil for a chainsaw, for those that don't know, there's an adhesive in that. And what that does is the centrifugal force of that chain going around the bar, that will actually fling your oil off. So you can put just regular motor oil in the bar oil for your chainsaw and run it, but that oil isn't going to do near as good a job, because the chain is going to just fling that oil, is going to get on there, and the chain's going to fling that oil off. Where the bar oil has an adhesive, sticks to the chain. And if you actually see a chainsaw being run in the wintertime when it's cold outside, it'll almost look like little strings of taffy coming off the bar, because that is that oil kind of trying to stick to your chain. So if you guys didn't know that, that's a little tidbit of information there. Oh yeah, shovel in your vehicle, extra weight, bag of sand, bag of cat litter, even a bag of water softener salt, because you got the weight, but then you can throw that underneath for traction. Plus, it'll break up the ice. Dana Green, neighbors cleaning out our driveway so the tow truck can take the daughter's truck, get fixed. Big limb land, it needs a chainsaw. Yeah, and if you got a chainsaw during snow damage, storm damage, whatever that it is, you can make friends in a hurry, big time. And you can buy a lot of clout with your neighbors, that you're kind of got your shit squared away, so to speak. What size battery chainsaw do I recommend? I don't know off the top of my head all the numbers, because I'm still learning the battery chainsaws. But as a general rule, the good battery chainsaws, the ones that Steel makes anyway, are typically more than the gas ones. The equivalent gas ones are typically cheaper. And that's because the amount of power that's in that battery really determines on how good that chainsaw is. So when you're purchasing a battery operated chainsaw, it all boils down to that battery and how much battery life that particular saw has. And from what I've learned so far, being in the chainsaw showroom, that is it. Let me see if I can look up real quick here and give you a model number or two. And I'll say we sell probably 10 gas chainsaws to one electric one. So they're not extremely popular. What do we got here? MSA 300, that is a very good one, but the retail on just what I'm pulling up here says $800. And MS 220, that's another one, that's $420. So anything from what I'm looking at on here, anything that's going to be good is going to be $400 or higher, basically. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a starting place there. Uh, hey there, Coney, how you doing? Candace, some of the modern stuff, even if you buy the best, isn't great. I'm not saying KitchenAid, but KitchenAid. Yeah, and I've heard that too because, as prices went up and inflation, the quality goes down because they're trying to cut corners to try to make the same amount of money. Now getting to the OPSEC failure here, and this is one that really I had to think about this, and I'm going to redact some of the information here because I want to make this as general as I possibly can, and I don't want to name names and stuff. But one of the things that I do is I process packages to be shipped, and we had a particular instance that took place here recently. And what it was is somebody brought in some packages to be shipped. They wanted them shipped very, very quickly. They wanted them next day. And they brought the stuff in, and the stuff being sent was just basic stuff. It was hygiene, toiletries, food. It was basic household stuff, right? And what took place is they wanted to ship that overnight, and they wanted it shipped to a particular hotel room in a particular city where there is a lot of problems right now. And I am 100% positive you guys know what city that is that I'm talking about. And then, of course, in the just the regular conversation of preparing these packages, it came out that, they were sending them out to a family member that was working for a particular faction in this city, and all the particulars that went along with that. Now the bad part of that is, and this is really really getting into your OPSEC, if a bad person wanted to grab that information and forward that into information to other bad people, that would have gave a basically a time and a place where a certain group of people who aren't liked for whatever reason. You can see where I'm going with this. People don't think like that nowadays. People are very trusting with different things. And like, you would have never been able to ship a package during World War II, to a Marine Corps, Marine Corps unit, this, on Iwo Jima, and, send a package there, took it up the boat. That would have never happened during World War II because that information can be relayed to people that could have been used against the Marines that were over there. So you can see where I'm getting with this information. You need to be really cautious with, and not even so much your information, but when you're sending stuff to areas of potential problems, or you're communicating or whatever, that information can be tracked and can be picked up by unsavory people and gone from there. So I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say here with that. But I seen that, and we got it all taken care of and stuff, but I could see if that was the wrong person doing that or taking that information, how that could have been a very serious OPSEC failure right then and there. And it's things that I want people to think about, and think a little bit about that information and how you use that information. And you know it's simple to get online now and have something shipped from, like, directly from Amazon. Hey, you know what? I need something shipped to somebody. You can or do that right off of Amazon, not even leave your house, and kind of take that whole problem, that whole OPSEC problem out of the circle, so to speak. But, and that I'm not, like I said, I don't want to get into too many more details, but you guys can see where that's all. And yeah, yeah, Patriot. It's the old loose lips sink ships. If you go on YouTube and you look at those old military cartoons that they did before Mel Blanc did you know Bugs Bunny and stuff. They did the ones from the military about loose lip sync ships, and they got into the guy who was talking to his girlfriend about where are you shipping out to or whatever, and then the Japanese guy heard it and forwarded that stuff, and that just went from there. So you can see where that's all going. uh Whatever, prep or OMG. Yeah, I thought so too. And I was trying to be really, low key and coy about everything. But boy, I really wanted to take that person aside and have a little chat, say, hey, this is probably not a good idea what you're doing here. And, they were completely blind to the potential problems with that. And and I guess us preppers, we just think on a different level than those folks. Drop Homestead, battery ones don't work as well as a gas chainsaw. Yeah, and that's the thing with the more expensive battery ones. They do work as good as the gas chainsaws, but you pay right through the nose for that stuff. At least that's what I have been taught here just recently. Some modern stuff, even you buy the best. Yeah, the KitchenAid. We got an old KitchenAid, so we're lucky there. Whatever, prepper, probably just stick with gas. Yeah, you know what? You can store a certain amount of gas. And if you get wreck fuel, you don't have no ethanol in it, you're doing good. I like steel. When I take the steel stuff apart, and I've had a chance now to look at multiple other brands, Echo, Huskies, that kind of stuff. They're always more complicated. They're harder to, do simple things like change chains and that kind of stuff. There's different engineering in it. And I just like the steel engineering. I think it's a little bit more customer user friendly. Oh yeah, Craig Bond, definitely wear your safety glasses and your protective equipment when you're running chainsaws too, because you don't want to compound that and have another problem on top of it yet. Oh yeah, even if you know the person well, it's better to keep it under your hat. Yeah, that's very much so. Hey, MR, are you keeping warm? Oh yeah, we're doing all right. We're doing good. We got multiple heaters in the house here, plus the furnace. We got that running, and we're all insulated up. We got film on the windows, and next year, I think we're going to do new doors and storm doors. That's going to help a lot. And that's all on the list to have done as well. Oh, yeah. Ambrose there. One of my boys lost 4 fingers 2 months ago, young with that. Yeah, there was another guy that I worked with. A tree actually fell on. He had a family member. They were out. They were cutting wood, and they had a tree that broke and fell and hit him, and it actually broke his femur. And they had to, they basically improvised a tourniquet, got the ambulance out there and stuff. And that's why I said, kind of, you want to have a tourniquet somewhere around when you're running a chainsaw. Like me, if I'm running a chainsaw for cutting firewood, my truck's going to be there, and my truck has, IFAKs and tourniquets and stuff in that. So it's right, at least if it's not on you, it should at least be in the general area. Private, yeah, private snafu, Coney, very much so. Yeah, like I said, and some of those are actually quite entertaining, but they're actually quite educational as well. Some of those old World War II propaganda, whatever, teaching cartoons. But like I said, if you ever have a chance to watch some of those on YouTube, it's well worth the half hour, 45 minutes to sit down there and watch those guys. And everybody gets stuff from Amazon nowadays, so it's not unusual, to see Amazon boxes sitting in different places. But when you see a box with the big label on it that it says it's going to here, here, and here on it, and that that's a problem area, that there's stuff going on, that catches people's attention. And like I said, I don't want to get into too much detail on that, but that's stuff that people, and like I said, I doubt that anybody that's watching this live stream right now, I doubt anybody in here would probably do something like that. But you know what? I get seen by a lot of people. Maybe that can spur a little thought there, that they keep a little bit quieter on different things. And I'm on YouTube. I'm a prepper on YouTube, but I'm just an average guy. I don't have anything crazy. I'm certainly not rich and don't have a bunker on New Zealand or anything. But some of the things that will help people out, and in bad situations, just like having the chainsaw in your truck when you're clearing roads and stuff. Some people just don't think of that, or they didn't grow up in that type of environment. So it's good to talk about that stuff. Most of the Greenworks electric stuff I bought works really well. We got a lot of Echoes. I think it's Echo or Ego. I think it's Ego stuff. It's a green and gray thing. A lot of people buy that stuff, but that's more so stuff for tending your yard than it would be any type of serious, like, I look at a chainsaw, that's right up there with a four-wheel drive pickup truck and a generator in my mind. It's one of the, kind of the big three or four items that you kind of want to have just in access to, so you can take care of yourself if something bad happens. The civilian war room. Sorry, I'm late. Was down doing a major redo in my pantry. Oh no, that's all right. Like I said, I had a little time earlier here tonight. I wanted to get on just a little bit earlier. With all the hacking and data stealing going on, we all have to deal with the dark side of technology, and that's very true. And I have two older steel O20s. I have an O26 and I have a 310. And that 310 has been the best chainsaw I ever owned. I bought it new in 2007. And other than bending the bar on it, I had it probably 5 years, and I fell a tree and it twisted on me, pinched the bar, and bent my bar. Other than that, and other than just routine maintenance and replacing chains, that saw has just run. And like, it's heavy, compared to the newer stuff now, it's a lot heavier and stuff. But I'll tell you what, it's a workhorse. Bumble Hill, I had FedEx drop off 1,000 rounds of 5.56 at the mailbox twice. No play brown wrapper, contents were obvious. Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that you almost got to take up with the vendor. Like, if I was ordering something like that, of course, I do all my ammo purchases are all pretty much face to face at different places where I know. I can't ever remember ordering ammunition off the internet, not at this point anyway. But pick up the phone and say hey to whatever the vendor is, and say, or send them an email, how do you ship this ammunition? Do you do it anonymously, or how do you do that? That'd be probably worth just dropping an email to customer service to find that out. And that goes too with anything else like that. Like if you're ordering some MREs, or you're ordering a freeze dryer or something, something that's directly related to kind of prepping, anything like that, and you where you're getting that from, it might be a good idea to you know keep an eye on your OPSEC. I know if Mosaic would be in here, he'd say that about generators. You want to do stuff to keep your generators low key, so people don't get any ideas. Like for me, I can lock up a generator inside a building and run it because nothing, nobody lives in that building and it's not connected to our house. So, and I've set it up so I can run that generator in kind of a locked up environment if I want to power the house. And that's just some things that I thought about when I was originally, setting stuff up. Uh, yeah, ours was actually Amazon. Yeah, and sometimes stuff comes packaged decent for Amazon, sometimes it doesn't. And I don't order a ton of stuff off Amazon, but it's always a good idea to keep an eye on that kind of stuff. If there's a pattern of bad OPSEC when they're shipping that stuff, that maybe it's a good idea to look at a different vendor. Henry Morgan, most firearms outdoors companies do not advertise on the shipping boxes for obvious reasons. Yeah, and you want to know why they do that? Because they've had so many firearms stolen from freaking FedEx and UPS distribution facilities. Ask me how I know that. I sold guns for 20 years. There were all kinds of problems back about 2014, 2015, 2016. I don't know how many hundreds of firearms, handguns especially, that were stolen out of a distribution facility. And I don't remember what the company was, but it was out of Indianapolis. And it was something into the hundreds of handguns that were being stolen out of this processing facility. And I don't know if it was, I don't remember if it was FedEx or it was UPS. I want to say it was one of those two, but they had all kinds of, ATF had all kinds of bulletins that came out, said if you had, they had lists of what the type of firearms were, where they were coming from and stuff, because they were trying to find out where they were going, because they didn't know where the hell all these stolen handguns and stuff were going. But yeah, so that's why a lot of those companies like Midway and stuff, they will put stuff in more nondescript packaging now, because that's kind of the result of that. Ego tools are good. Their Nexus generators is good too. Well, that's good to know. You take care, Craig. See you next time. Mr. Bumble, FedEx is not A2 friendly. Well, yeah, like I said, I don't remember. I want to say it was FedEx, but I don't remember now, because that was quite a few years ago. But yeah, it was into the hundreds and hundreds of handguns that were being stolen, and they were being stolen from vendors like Lipsy's, Sports South. There was Bud's Gun Shop, I think, was another one. That's another big internet one. That was another one where stuff was getting heisted. I usually just order from Lucky Gun and never had an issue. That's good to know too. Sometimes it's safer to buy some things at a store in person. I don't want to blow my OPSEC too bad, but I do small transactions with cash in multiple locations. I don't think that that's any type of rocket science that I have to, kind of keep quiet or anything, but I think that's the best way to do a lot of different things. Yeah. I don't like getting my prepped by mail because I don't want anyone to know what I have. You know what? And that gets back kind of what I said about the OPSEC thing that I experienced this week. The mailman has a general idea. If you get the gun magazines and you get the whatever, the prepping magazines in there, and you get shipments from this place and that place, the mailman's going to have a general idea that you're a prepper or whatever. Hey, Sandsock, how you doing? Hey, Mary Gallagher. Hey, Dog Bite. How much snow did I get here? I got to say, we've probably gotten about 8 or 10 inches over the course of the last few days, because it's just been kind of hit and miss. It'll snow like crazy for a couple hours and then it'll quit. And like today, it was the same thing. We had that squall that blew in off the lake. It was, blinding snow for about 45 minutes, probably snowed about 2 inches. And then 2 hours later, there was blue sky outside. So it's kind of a constant hit and miss thing. Do they still make prepping magazines? Yeah, actually they do, and most of them. You get a heck of a what is it? The backwoodsman. There was some that were actually called prepper. They were like the prepper survival guide was another one. I think Jim Cobb is the one that used to edit one of those. I don't know if they're still out there, but Backwoods Home was another one. And then of course, you had all the firearms magazines. If they're an NRA member, they get those magazine memberships. You get the American Hunter, or there's another one that they have that's more like 2A related stuff. But they used to have, like, if you were an NRA member, you got one of two different magazines that show up in the mail. Like I said, it's the mailman knows what you have. There ain't even no sense hiding it to a certain extent, because as a general rule, they see your stuff day in and day out. 12 to 16 inches in central Ohio roads are pretty bad. What are my favorite books? Let's see if I got a couple of them right here. I'm pretty I got a love for older cookbooks. I think there's a lot of information in there, how to how to make different things, even things like soap and stuff. You can find, like, this is one of my favorite ones right here, the Mennonite Community Cookbook. There's all kinds of really solid information in this. Back to Basics is another one. I can pull it out here. I got it too far buried back in here, but Back to Basics by Reader's Digest is another one that's an extremely good book, and it covers a little bit of everything. It covers everything from, like, choosing your land, how to look for water, how to do basic things like butchering animals, smoking meat, canning, preserves, drying stuff, doing stuff like making clothes, how to make your own soap, how to tend to your orchard and stuff. It's all in one book. And to this day, I still think that is one of my favorite prepping books that are out there, is that Back to Basics by Reader's Digest. This is an excellent medical book when it comes to any type of really medical instance that could happen when you're kind of out and about. The only thing of it is it uses all the medical terms. So if you have this book, you want this book to go along with it, so you could decipher what the medical terms are in here. So these two kind of go hand in hand. What else do I got here? Like I said, my Back to Basics, I got underneath there. I got a bunch of stuff piled in on top of it. Wildlife Chef. This is another one. This was put out by Michigan United Conservation Clubs back in the day, and they have a lot of stuff here. Wild seasonings, like that right there. Maple syrup. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of recipes in here for things that you would, that you might be able to forage yourself. Turtles, frogs, crawdads. Kind of tells you how to dispatch a snapping turtle. Snapping turtle is actually very good. You cut that moldy shell off of a snapping turtle. The meat underneath there looks like boneless, skinless chicken breast and boneless, skinless chicken thighs. There is a dark and a light meat on those snapping turtles, but when you open that up, you wouldn't think that that's what you see. It looks exactly like skinless chicken. Oh, what else do we got? These are books too. I had a couple different people, when I'd done videos on these, I had a couple of different people say that they still print these in a couple of different formats, but they're these little books right here. It says Stony Communications Incorporated, Pownell, Vermont, but solar greenhouse, pole woodshed, root cellar, making your own pond, sharpening hand tools, building simple furniture, cold storage, Oh gosh, what else do I got sitting here? This is a good one for those that want to learn about compasses and stuff. It's a reprint. It's a reprint from the Department of the Army, and I don't remember if they have a date in this one or not. Yeah, 1993. So it's fairly, it's not like a 1960 version, whatever. It's a little bit more update, but it gives you, all kinds of information like on declination, which is really good to know, because your compass needle doesn't, depending on where you are in the earth, doesn't always point to true north. It points to magnetic north, and then there is a difference between true and magnetic north, and that's declination. So that's kind of what that is. And then, of course, I got some more of the modern books here. This is one of Dave Canterbury's books, and I actually like Dave Canterbury's, Bushcraft 101 and that kind of stuff. Boy Scout. My father-in-law bought me this one, first edition of the Boy Scouts Handbook. Um, when you get past like the procedural stuff in the Boy Scouts in this book, there's a lot of practical information that's in there, but you have to sift through it. And I noticed that with a lot of prepping books too. You really have to sift through it sometimes to figure out what your favorite genre is, so to speak, or what you're interested in, or the skills that you're lacking and you want to improve on them. And this is another one of my favorite survival books. This is a new one. This just came out here a couple of years ago, and I've actually talked to Selko and Toby over the years. I actually did kind of an interview video with Selko, but it had really bad audio on it way back in the day. But this covers a lot of different stuff. It covers stuff on medication and personal protection, and stuff to store and how much of it to store, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's just the stuff here that's at my fingertips. But yeah, but if I had to pick out of all of these right there, I think Toby and Selko's book and that boot camp book, this freaking wilderness medicine guide, and then a medical dictionary to decipher the words for you, and then of course Back to Basics by Reader's Digest. Those are the three of the most useful books that I probably own, give or take. And then there's certain sections in other books that are really, really good too. But like I said, you got to kind of sift through everything. Let me see if I can get caught up here in the chat. I got off on a tangent there. Matthew Whopper, I gifted all my family members Reader Digest Complete Do-It-Yourself Manual and Back to Basics. Yeah, like I said, I agree 100%. I have a book on medical herbs and several seeds from my seed collection. That's good to have too. Medical books. I've got another book. It's a little paperback that has a lot of good little tidbits of information in it too. It's called How to Stay Alive in the Woods. And it used to be, you could pick those up for like $2 or $3, little paperback versions of that. I think I actually got a couple different printings of that, but that's actually a pretty good book too. Yep, Turtle Soup. I've had turtle a bunch of different ways. I've never had a way where I didn't like it. Yeah, snapping turtle, and snapping turtles can be fairly easy to catch. So don't kind of cross that off as an after SHTF food source, because there's different ways to trap snapping turtles, and a lot of times you can just find snapping turtles crossing roads and trails and whatnot. The thing of it is snapping turtles actually have a seasoned. So if you're doing it, before SHTF happens, you might want to check the game rules on that, because there are rules when it comes to taking turtles. And a lot of times you have to have at least in Michigan, you have to have a valid all species fishing license to go after turtles. I want to learn how to build a small smokehouse in the yard if I can. Well, I'm going to tell you, smokehouses are deceptively simple. You need some type of box, and it has to have some type of opening at the top so it draws the smoke up. And you can either do it over a fire pit and start a fire and do it old school, or you have to have some kind of burner, some type of gas burner that generates a heat source, or you could use charcoal as well. And then you have to have some type of plate over top of that, some type of metal, so that metal warms up, and then some type of bowl to hold your wood chips or your pieces of damp wood so that can create the smoke. And then sometimes you want another bowl of a metal bowl over top of that to catch like the drippings, so that drippings don't get down on if you're smoking something fatty, those drippings aren't getting down on your fire and causing flare ups, which could cause your stuff up higher to burn. And then you want to have some type of thermometer so you can kind of generally gauge your temperature, because a lot of things have to be at a certain temperature for them to be safe to eat. Or if you're cold smoking something, and the definition of cold smoking is you're doing about 140 degrees or less. You do this a lot for different sausages, things like smoked turkey, things like bacon. That's a cold smoke, because you have to, then those things you have to cook thoroughly after it comes out of the smoker. So, you'll smoke your bacon, you'll let it hang out in your smoker in the wintertime, and you'll take off what you need. But when you bring that in the house, you're going to slice it up and you're going to fry it and you're going to cook it. And then that makes it completely safe. So, the smoking is preservation, but then the final cooking is what makes everything safe. And that's kind of the definition of a cold smoke. A hot smoke, you're not only smoking it, you're also cooking it at the same time. And then there's certain things like summer sausage. When you make summer sausage, you want that cold, you want it smoked, but then you want to get your temperature high enough so you actually cook that, and that's a cooked preserved product then. Hopefully that makes sense. Uh, Medical reference books. Yep, I think I've showed most of those books in a couple of different book videos that I did do. I had Jim Cobb send me some books too, and I did reviews for them, so they're flying around out there in the wild too. Hey, Bob and Channel, how are you? Hey, Dirt Farmer. Hey, John Poole. Hey. Forest Girl. I always hit up the extension offices for good information. That's good. That's a good thing to good information to pass out too. I remember having an old farm book, Sandsock. I remember having an old farm book in the barn bathroom. There was a book on the tech the old timer used to fix things like barn doors, tips, tricks. I like building fences. Wish I still had it. I actually had a really good book here too. I got it out west. One of the few times I was out west, and I don't remember where I actually got it, but it was sort of like the Back to Basics book, but it was real thin paper, and it was like a larger paperback, and it had like almost like tissue paper, thin pages. Those pages all fell apart. The book basically just fell apart, but there was some good information in that too. Hey, Michigan Silverback, how you doing? Loved that 1100 you showed in that little video today. That was awesome. Drops Homestead. Vivo Home 3-in-1 vertical charcoal smoker, barbecue smoker grill, built-in thermometer, air vent, 2 access doors, cost $89. Pinball Preparedness has a couple videos on how to build a smokehouse. There's a good information there. Well, the smokehouse we had at the farm was built out of secondhand cement blocks, and the burner was actually the burner out of a water heater. So we had basically a thermostat on it. So when that we set that thermostat to the same temperature that you wanted the water set at, the burner would kick off. So there was very little chance of us burning anything. And then if we needed a hotter heat, sometimes we would supplement that with another burner or something else. And it was basically just a cement block building, 7 feet tall, with a door in it. And then we had angle iron on the edges there where we could slide racks or whatever we needed to hang the meat on. And that was basically all it was. And that smokehouse, you actually store meat in that. You could smoke some hams or some bacon or something in there, and you could just leave it in there, close it up. Nothing could get into it, and then it would in the wintertime it stayed cold. When you wanted anything out of it, you just cut it down and you used it. Oh yeah, smokers are great if the freezer quits. That's very true. Well, guys, it has been just about an hour here. I think I've covered everything I wanted to, but like I said, I wanted to mention that about, the confidence and gear and, that OPSEC failure that I seen. So people are aware of, potential issues that could be out there so they can circumvent that kind of stuff. Like I said, I want people to have good information, and sometimes good information is hard to find on YouTube because people can BS on YouTube to a certain extent, and I'd prefer it where I, I wish people on YouTube sometimes would take a little bit different approach. It's not sometimes always about clicks. You want to I want everybody to be a prepper, and I want everybody to have a certain amount of skills that if something happens, people can take care of themselves. And they're only going to do that if they have a good teacher to begin with. So that's why I tried to do. But anyway, for that, all that's worth. Hey, Hudson Valley, how you doing? Hey, Jody, L Dog, you guys have a good evening. Yeah, whatever, prepper. You have a good evening as well. Like I said, I appreciate each and every one of you guys being here. We've been on here about an hour. I'm gonna close her down, but I'm happy to spend some time with you guys a couple times a week and kind of share my experiences and get some good information out there. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I hope you guys always get some information, some entertainment out of my videos. And God bless, and you guys all take care out there.